Ron.
Yeah.
Why didn't you say it the first time I said Ron?
Because it's pronounced Aaron.
You done messed up, Ron.
Aaron is here. Sterling's with me. Sterling, you ain't done messed up today, but you know who did?
You?
L. Ron Howard done messed up when he did not come back the way he was supposed to.
No, he did not. No, he did not. And there's a wide varying, I think, opinions on that matter. Which, you know what? I have to actually ask my mom what she thought about that. I've never have, so I'll do that next time I talk to her.
Yes, do
I know,
that.
right? What a question not to ask.
Yes, and you know when you ask her, so ask her if she thought L. Ron Hubbard was coming back. Why? If and was she aware? Did she know? Did she care that like the rest of Scientology did not think he was coming back? Like that, does she understand that some people were basically told that Target 2 is the reason he wasn't coming back, and the people at INT were told something completely different? Like when I first found out that the people at INT thought L. Ron Hubbard was coming back, I didn't find that out until after I left Scientology. My mind was completely blown. I couldn't even wrap my head around it.
I get that. It's just funny. You compartmentalize, don't you? Like, it never occurred to me he wasn't coming back because I always saw his house every day, you know, and they were doing laundry, and I knew people that personally were, you know, dry cleaning his clothes that he wasn't wearing. So, you know, that's a brainwashing that sort of sets in, and you just go, oh, he must be coming back. I almost forgot about Target 2. I was like,
that's right. I was talking to someone yesterday who'd spent time at the INT base, and she said when she was getting a tour, you just mentioned L. Ron Hubbard's house. Miscavige spent tens of millions of dollars tearing down an existing structure, rebuilding a new home for L. Ron Hubbard called Bonnie View on Scientology's secretive international management base out in Gilman Hot Springs, California. And this person was touring through the house as a young Sea Org member with Shelly Miscavige and asked, why is this here? And he goes, oh, because L. Ron Hubbard's coming back.
Right. It's like they knew a date too. It's like, you do wonder, is there something I just don't know? I mean, yeah, of course, you know, I was the trees I see for a while, so I didn't get briefed on these important facts, but no, it makes you wonder. I also partly think he rebuilt BV, the Bonnie View. Sorry, that Bonnie View is the name of the house on the Golden Air Productions base. It's called Bonnie View. We called it BV for short. And I partially think he built that and decked that house out so that he had an excuse to do Building 50, which, if people don't know, they were right next to each other.
Why would Building Bonnie View, and for those watching, Building 50 is David Miscavige's private personal office building, which cost like, what, $50 million?
Yeah.
Why would Building Bonnie View be an excuse to build himself a $50 million office building?
From my point of view, from my complete opinion, is that once you built Bonnie View, you had this area just below it that wasn't officially part of Bonnie View, that laid incomplete, would just be dirt, essentially. Oh. And I could be completely wrong, and I acknowledge that. But I think, just if you think about it, I mean, if you go, okay, Dave already has offices. RTC as an organization is not growing. It's not any bigger. He doesn't need new office space. He had plenty of space. Well, if I build L. Ron Hubbard this brand new shiny castle, then you know what? I'm just going to build myself something, and people won't be such a shocking piece of information to them, if that makes sense. Like, it's like,
where were the RTC offices before he built Building 50?
In the upper villas. So right adjacent to the ship area, and then there's a road that splits the property right above the ship, and above that is L. Ron Hubbard's house, and oddly enough, one studio that does the film mixing called Studio 2. That's weirdly right at the base of L. Ron Hubbard's house up there.
So it was just a small little facility that RTC was using.
Yeah.
When in the Sea Org, in the there was one Sea Org magazine, the High Winds magazine, that came out shortly after 1996, where Miscavige is in this pretty sweet looking, it looks like a war room. You know, it looks like the Scientology situation room with like blue neon grid lights. Was that in the villas?
I actually, I couldn't tell you for sure, but I thought that was, and Mike Rinder would know, I thought that was down in his offices in the HGB.
That might have been the HGB?
I think so, because I had never seen that room, and I had been in all the offices in the villas at one point. So I don't remember seeing that room.
I almost, if I can pull up the photo I'm talking about while we're sitting here.
Oh, it's the one where he's also got the Rolex too, right? He's got his arms crossed, and you can see his watch, and he's standing.
Yeah. By the way, for those not familiar with Sterling's channel yet, you can find Sterling Tomkins on YouTube at Sterling Tomkins, or Leaving Scientology, Loving Life.
Thank you.
So this chat that we're doing right now was inspired by another email that you received from the same gentleman who gave his opinions on why Shelly was sent off of the int base out to CST instead of being sent to the hole like everyone else.
Yes, that is right.
And he had some additional thoughts specifically on the subject of L. Ron Hubbard reincarnating and stuff. Let me just read from the email a little bit. I'm not going to share it on screen because I haven't like redacted things. Okay, he said, Okay, he goes, here's one point I had not mentioned, and it might even fuel the discussion further. Shelly has something that literally no one else knows or can divulge or use against David Miscavige. Shelly knows everything that went through the mind and actions of David Miscavige during the time that he executed his takeover of Scientology. She was at his side intimately, so personally and also post-wise, his post.
Yeah.
I know that at least early on, they had private discussions on probably everything. She knew that L. Ron Hubbard did not explicitly appoint a successor, especially did not explicitly appoint David Miscavige. She knew that he had specifically named 5 or 6 individuals as his most trusted successors and gave them all diamond pins. I knew about that diamond pin. I did not know that David Miscavige wasn't the only one who received one.
You know, and I actually always wondered about that diamond pin because I think I remember hearing a story one time. Well, anyways, he got one apparently, but I don't know that that's necessarily the truth.
And that diamond pin and the definition of it and the description of it is in the basic flag orders on the uniform. You know, there's certain course. Was it the not the keys to competence, the grooming course? Was the personal grooming course the one that went over all the uniforms and the ranks and everything?
Yes.
Or was it, are you sure? Was that the one?
No, personal grooming wouldn't have their, what was it?
It wasn't keys to competence. It wasn't the Sea Org. I don't know. But that pin is defined in the basic flag orders that all Sea Org members study. Can you ask your mom who else got those pins? Or maybe Janice knows or something?
Possibly. I will definitely ask. I mean, and right off the bat, I can tell you, I believe it was Mark Yeager, Norman Starkey, apparently Dave Miscavige, and those are the only ones I know of. Because
you would think that Annie Broker would have had one.
Right. Oh, and Ray Midoff. Ray Midoff, I think, got one too.
Wow. So the original DIGs basically.
Yes.
And let me see. I had a thought there. Oh, and when Miscavige would wear his Class A uniform, very often the only 2 things he would wear on them is the diamond pin and then that one solid red campaign bar that meant something else similar to sort of what the diamond. It was like a personal L. Ron Hubbard commendation or some shit like that.
Right. You know, and Mark Fisher would probably know a little bit of that story, so I'll ask him as well.
Mitch Brisker recently just posted a photo of him and David Miscavige and Ronnie Miscavige backstage at an event or after an event.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what was on Miscavige's uniform is the diamond pin and the red campaign bar.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll try to pull that up. I'll try to pull that up.
Yeah.
Okay. So he goes on to say, Shelly knew and was at his side as he dismantled the original RTC and the corporate liaison, and he dismantled CMO International and Author Services International and installed himself and only himself as the supreme leader. She knew what was going through his mind, and she knew what LRH had actually laid out and had actually intended. She knew that David Miscavige originally expected L. Ron Hubbard to return. She also knows everything that David Miscavige had lied about personally while he was executing his coup. No one else has that firsthand knowledge. I think that is what Mike Rinder means when he says Shelly is uniquely qualified to topple David Miscavige. It's not because of all his federal crimes. It's because of this inside skinny. That's what I think Mike means.
Right. I mean, maybe not now, but then if she speaks up and says, hey, you know what, guys, I was there when Dave rewrote the issue, or I was there when he canceled Annie Broker and Pat Broker's what was it, loyal officer issue that wasn't supposed to be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think the information she had could have thrown enough doubt into the, you know, cogs that you would go, okay, well, what's happening here? Now, again, all conjecture. Could she have pulled it off? Would she have? I don't know. But it is fascinating to think that she does know so much.
Yeah. It is interesting. It's an important distinction to say, could she or would she? I don't think anyone has said that she was actually planning on doing anything like this, but I do think David Miscavige would be worried about the potential of her doing something like that.
Right. Right. I mean, if someone got hold of her, I mean, okay, look, so you've had Marty Rathbun leave and do that. You've had Mike Rinder leave and do that. You now have, you know, my mom Biddy talking about her story and her experiences, mostly her story, and then her experiences with Dave, which does not shine a good light on him at all. So you have all these people. I mean, just imagine her. I mean, so many people have also said, oh, I would love to hear from Pat Broker. I personally would love to hear from Pat Broker. Like, just to know how that all went down in his point of view, even though I heard he was a little bit on the crazy side of things. Just knowing that would be amazing. Yeah.
Okay, let me try to. Well,
I
thought
see
I could
it.
just go full screen on this thing. So there's Dave's diamond pin and that red campaign bar I was talking about. But that's not a diamond pin on Norman Starkey up there, is it? It just might be.
It is. I think it is. And I noticed that right away when looking at it. Does he have one or not?
Wow.
I distinctly remember him wearing one. I just remember seeing. And that's their tuxedo. Those were their tuxedo Class A.
That's right. That's not Class A's. Right.
Yeah, no, but still they look like Class A except for the bow tie.
Right.
And
okay.
Obviously they're blue.
So the rest of this email says, okay, I forgot to turn my computer on Do Not Disturb. Everyone's trying to call me right now. No gracias. Okay. Executing his cue. No one else has that firsthand knowledge. That is how she could have threatened him and probably why she was banished forever. She can never resurface or talk publicly. It's certain she's been heavily brainwashed, but she still knows how David Miscavige took over sole control, despite that never being L. Ron Hubbard's directions or his instructions, or directions or his intentions. Possibly Pat Broker has more knowledge directly of what L. Ron Hubbard actually wanted, but nobody knows the inner workings and inside the mind of David Miscavige as Shelley. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All that rings true to me. Is what? Any thoughts you have on it?
Yeah, no, I would agree. I'd agree 100%. And it's fascinating to think about that as an alternate universe, as a timeline divide. What would have happened if she had disclosed that, or someone had gotten in writing all that went down and what the intentions were at the time, and how the lawyers arranged things to go a certain way, which we've asked that question before. Did she have any involvement with the lawyer side of it? Did she go with them to those meetings? I don't know about that. I don't know that she would have sat in on meetings with lawyers, but when it comes to raiding Pat Broker's ranch, or L. Ron Hubbard's ranch, to get the remaining OT levels that did not exist, and the bully methods and the tactics, she would have known about a lot of that, and been, and of course they're spouses. He's going to talk, and he's going to have a drink late at night and talk about how he feels about things and everything that's different. Pat Broker spoke about Ryan. Ooh, did not know that.
CO Bill, if there's any video, if you could send me, could you email me any link to any video you have about that? I've never seen any footage of Pat Broker ever, other than at the L. Ron Hubbard died event.
Yep.
So if there's something else out there, maybe he spoke with Robert Von Young, but it's not on video. But anyway, if there is a link, can you send it to us at growingupinscientology@gmail.com? I would super appreciate it.
Right. And Jesse Prince actually published some of the stuff in his book too about that time period. So the two people have talked about is Mark Fisher, who was there at the time when Dave did the takeover, and Jesse Prince also apparently was a sec checker and was asked to interrogate Dave Miscavige about why the all clear, which was why Dave Miscavige didn't finish the project in the 80s to get all the lawsuits dismissed so that L. Ron Hubbard could come back and be the public face of Scientology again. That's a fascinating story in itself. I don't know how accurate it is. I want to believe it's true.
Wait. Whose story are you saying you're not sure how accurate it is?
Jesse Prince's.
Yeah, I've tried to. Jesse's emailed me a few times in the past. I've tried to ask him if he wants to come on with me, but I've never been able to get an answer to that. But I'd love to chat with Jesse.
Oh, so would I. And I don't doubt that it's true. Just want to make that clear. I'm not saying I doubt Jesse Prince's version. It is a very interesting version of the story, and it has a lot of detail. And just knowing that alone and getting that on the tube and so people can see it, may make a little more sense on also Dave's behavior. Because I don't think Dave's behavior is just because he is a monumental prick. I think he's done these things. He knows, and he's constantly having to try to get away with his behavior and what he's done previously, with a constant worry about someone maybe finding out. He's human. He's still human, right? So he's susceptible to those sort of feelings and mannerisms, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's funny. In the eyes of Scientologists, Miscavige gets a ton of credit for getting Scientology's tax exemption back, and no doubt that's a big deal. But what gets overlooked is that he failed at the most important task L. Ron Hubbard ever assigned to him, which was to get him the all clear on the legal front, so that Hubbard could come out of hiding and take over, overtly take over control of Scientology again. It's the one thing Miscavige was actually supposed to do in L. Ron Hubbard's lifetime that he completely failed on, and he actually had an incentive to fail on that. He had an incentive to keep L. Ron Hubbard in seclusion until he died. And no one would ever be able to convince me that Miscavige did not intentionally drag his feet on that. I've never heard anyone actually comment on whether, like, I haven't heard Mike or Biddy or anyone else who was around back then. I've just never heard that be a topic of discussion. Was Miscavige truly and honestly trying to get rid of these threats, or was he totally okay? Because what's Ron going to do about it? He's still what's Ron going to do about it? He's stuck in hiding anyway.
And tremendously influenced by the report, as we know now, by the reports sent up to him. People could send, Dave specifically could send a report up about the existing commanding officer of CMO International and blacklist her in a second, even though it was not true, as Janice told the story about her sister. So he had complete control over those conversations and those lines at the time, and could manipulate it how he wanted. And we know L. Ron Hubbard was not an all-powerful, all-seeing being. He was very, very human and flawed at that. So that's the part that always gets me about, I think people comment on their channels about like, Scientology really does work. Why do they even have to hire PIs? Couldn't they just float in and see things, anything that's happening by remote viewing all the time? It's like another way to disprove Scientology really works.
It's true.
Yeah. But Shelly, again, so you say the whole thing. Shelly, so Biddy wasn't there. Mike wouldn't have been close enough to Dave, in my opinion, to know that. Who would know that? Who would know one night if Dave came home and said, you know what? I think I just got to take over this whole thing, because L. Ron Hubbard at this point is a liability. I'm just going to take over the whole thing and make it right. Shelly would have been part of that conversation, and only Shelly, in my mind.
Right.
Which is, again, a plea to Shelly. Hey, Shelly, come out. You have so many people that will support you, that will forgive you. And, why don't you end on a good note by actually helping people out, and doing something, for lack of a better word, deliver an effective blow to the real enemy of that whole. I mean, come on, Dave is the one single-handedly destroying Scientology. He's the reason you have a channel. He's the reason Mike Rinder speaks out. He's the reason that so many, that if he just treated right, wouldn't be saying anything. If they didn't just kick you out on your ass with $250, a lot of people would say, I'm good. I'm gonna do my own thing. But they had to go and twist the knife right at the end there, and in some cases continue to twist the knife all the way through. Which is why they're a brutal organization.
It's true. It's true that all that super over the top abusive mistreatment of Sea Org members and staff members at the direction based on the atmosphere created by David Miscavige is the reason why so many of us are out and publicly speaking. But it's also interesting to consider that even if we were all still in Scientology, that would imply that we were marching to the beat of Miscavige's drum, because that's the only way to continue to remain in Scientology. So even if we were all still back in Scientology, Scientology would still be failing, because I believe Scientology is failing because of what it is, and particularly what it has become. Some might argue what it's always been, but it's become, but back in the 60s and the 70s, Scientology was a different thing than what it is today.
Oh, absolutely.
And a lot of that is by L. Ron Hubbard's own doing. I mean, once he created the Sea Organization, the entire complexion of Scientology and the degree to which it is a manipulative cult drastically changed, increased, I would argue, right?
Yeah.
And so even if we were all still in Scientology, what Scientology has become is the reason it is failing. I don't think it's failing even because we're all out here speaking. I just think we're helping speed it along a little bit.
Yeah. Accelerating it. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You know, it's funny you say that, because Mark said something yesterday, which I found fascinating. It's something that I spoke with Mitch about last night too, is and I would love to break it down. There's distinct factions or people in the Sea Org that are there and have different views on stuff. Just like you and I have spoken about, Aaron. We come from completely different echelons. We didn't know each other, you know, and for lack of a better word, Int and Gold did look down on everyone else. And that sucks that was the case, because we were supposed to be one big team, but it did. And one of the things is like, okay, so I didn't really believe in the tech. I just wanted to do my job and be left alone, just work as hard as I could at it. And you have people like, I think, Mark, that were the same way. I don't know that was the case with Mike Rinder specifically, but I believe it was the case for you. I think you did believe, and I'm just going to ask, I think you did believe in the tech, but you just wanted to get your job done and do the best you could at it, as far as I understand your experience there, right?
To a degree, it was a weird thing. My job, my job was technically focused, you know, on the technical side of Scientology. And all I really cared about on a day-to-day basis was doing that job. I didn't need to believe in, you know, this like humanitarian objective of clearing the planet to do my job on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
But the one thing that I would every now and then have to remind myself, why are we here? Why are we doing this? Why are we putting up with this bullshit? Why am I in the Sea Org? Why aren't I off living like just a fun life? I would then have to go, oh yeah. Prison planet, clearing the planet, you know, psychiatric alien prisoners, you know, freeing everyone from the cycle of birth to death, the trap of the physical universe. I'd have to remind myself, oh yeah, we're on like a humanitarian mission, and that's why I can't go to the beach this Saturday. But
no,
on a day-to-day basis, I cared about none of that. I cared about keeping my seniors happy, keeping myself from getting into trouble, getting the stats up this week, where the student comps at, like, the big picture stuff is what kept me in the Sea Org, but it's not what made me do my job.
And that's, so again, same thing here. It wasn't like you were a diehard of the, I must do this every day because every person that I get through a course or I get through an auditing action is going to be that much closer to
I didn't give
clearing
a
the planet, because we couldn't think, we couldn't think in that sort of concept, that advance at least. And it's funny to me, I never thought about the prison planet, the whole thing. I thought, what if I leave and Scientology really does accomplish their stuff and I don't get a seat on the spaceship to Target 2?
Did you really think that?
I seriously thought that. Like, I'm not going to get a seat. Well, what if I'm the dick that's left on Earth as a skeleton crew?
The joke's on you, dude. There's no spaceship. You're just supposed to drop your body and pick up another body on Target 2.
No, I wanted there to be a spaceship, Baron. I really wanted there to be a spaceship. You know, I was even practicing the whole ET thing, the slow motion walk into the light. But no, I wanted there to be a spaceship. No, but I find that so fascinating, that the differences between people's views. And I think you mentioned the Tom Cruise event in 2004, where he got the Freedom Medal of oversized jewelry or whatever. I don't remember the name of it.
The Freedom Medal of Valor.
Thank you. I was on my way out, sort of lingering at that time, sort of trying to figure out how to finally leave, but not post it anywhere. And I watched that event and I walked out when he said in his video, and it's funny because Mike Brown posted that great parody of Tom Cruise video the other day with LARPing, and I was offended by that. I know you had mentioned that some people. I was one of the people who was like, "Are you kidding me? Did you just say that? Are you really telling us in the Sea Org how dedicated we need to be, and that you need to earn a right to call yourself a scientist?" Like, I was offended by what he said, because I'm like going, and then you said, I need to, you know, I would love to take a vacation. Tom Cruise said, I would love to take a vacation. I'd love to be out there. I'm like, wait a second. Every People magazine I've ever opened, you're on a boat somewhere in the Mediterranean. What are you talking about? Like, I
know, it's crazy. You only ever see Tom Cruise romping, and what do you say? I want to play and romp.
Yeah. No, because when he goes to his place in Aspen, he's working full time, I'm sure. I was so offended by that as a Sea Org member at the time, and as a Scientologist. That to me was a giant turnoff. I'm like, what are you talking about? You A-list pampered celebrity? Are you kidding me? You couldn't work. You couldn't last a day in the Sea Org, man. Like, and Dave was holding him up as this. I mean, I was offended. I was so offended by that. And I'm glad some other people were. I found out there was a number of Scientologists that were offended. But that's the blinders that Dave has on when he could go. He doesn't even know his own people when he could go throw out a video like that. I'm sure there was a decent sized exodus after that video, or people that got very disaffected from that, because it's so arrogant for him to make that statement.
So it's funny though, you know, when he said that, it didn't even occur to me that he would ever compare Tom Cruise to staff members or Sea Org members, and therefore I didn't think that's what he was doing, and therefore I didn't get offended. Because when he said Tom Cruise is the most dedicated Scientologist I know, I was like, yeah, but we don't call staff members Scientologists, we call them staff members. We don't call Sea Org members Scientologists, we call them Sea Org members. No, but it's funny because linguistically speaking, of course, Scientologists would include staff members and Sea Org members. I just didn't think of it that way. And so it didn't occur to me to get offended.
Interesting. Well, remember at the same time, I had that phone call with Gold where the receptionist answered the phone and said, "We're so excited about Mr. Cruise." And I said, "You mean Tom?" "No, we call him Mr. Cruise or Sir now." And so that offended me too. I was like, why would I ever call him Mr. Cruise or Sir? I'm the Sea Org member, not him. So, and maybe that's a weird way to look at it, but I was like, yeah, no, that's not happening. And guess what? What's funny too is that at the Gold base, there was no bigger Tom Cruise fan than me. I had all of his movies on DVD. When he came to the property once and he was doing research on his own films, Eric Geisler, who worked in SFX at the time, who knew me there, came to me to get all my DVDs because the Gold library didn't have all his movies, to borrow my DVDs so that he could watch those things, play them back and watch some of his old scenes and stuff like that. So I was a giant fan of that video. Then
you're telling me Tom Cruise came to Scientology's Int base and what he wanted to do there was sit down and watch his own movies?
He was doing research for a role, apparently. That's all I was told. That's all I was told. Yeah. Who knows? Who really knows what the real story was? But all I know is they borrowed my DVDs. So
wow.
Yeah. And
I was pretty much the biggest Tom Cruise fan as well.
Yeah.
I still secretly root for Tom Cruise to be able to disappear into his characters again. Like,
yeah.
Tom Cruise, the actor, was a fun guy to watch on screen. Now I can't look at him without seeing Tom Cruise, the super Scientologist.
Right. You have to ignore that. I mean, even when Top Gun 2 came out, let's be honest, like, I was so excited about that movie. I watched that with my Yeti brother. I mean, it's not about Tom Cruise. I just love that movie so much. I was sitting there like just when the opening credits started and the F-18 Hornets were taking off the aircraft carrier. I had an ear-to-ear grin. I was so excited. It wasn't about Tom Cruise. It was about the movie. He just happens to be in it. But yeah, I used to be a fan of his too, and I just know I can't anymore, especially when he does a serious role after seeing his videos in Scientology and knowing what he knows. I mean, we do know he knows about the beatings at the base and how people are treated. And that's sad that he could have that information and still act holier than thou about everything. But again, he's Dave's best friend, so I'm not surprised there at all.
The idea of Tom Cruise sitting down and watching his own movies is really cracking me up. Especially to specifically do it at the Int base. Like, of all the reasons he would be there, doing research, even doing research doesn't explain that away for me. doing research by watching yourself. Maybe he was spotting himself on the tone scale in different roles or something, doing the Tom Cruise version of tone scale spotting. It'd be hard to walk around the int base and do tone scale spotting because everyone's supposed to be at like exhilaration or above or action or tone 40 or whatever.
Yeah, you'd find everyone below 2.0 antagonism there.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, I know, I'll do tone scale spotting by watching myself in my own movies.
Maybe he was going back to make a list of all the SP actors he worked with previously. You know, so he could find his why for why his last movie didn't do well. Who knows what he was doing?
Yeah. You know, like Magnolia comes to mind as one of the last movies that I really was like, wow, Tom Cruise is actually an actor. That's like, you remember Magnolia, right?
I actually never seen it.
Dude, he plays this hyper misogynist motivational speaker with his own daddy issues. And there's this scene where he goes to visit his dad on his deathbed. And damn, it is a good scene. That's when Tom Cruise could actually be a character actor. Like even in that movie, he wasn't being Tom Cruise, the biggest movie star in the world. Forget Tom Cruise, the super Scientologist. He wasn't even he was being Tom Cruise, a character actor. It was pretty remarkable. I root for him to be able to go back to those days, but I don't think he wants to. I think he wants to continue to be the biggest being in the world, the guy who's saving Hollywood with every movie, the guys who's single-handedly keeping the movie theater industry afloat. I don't think he's interested in being an artsy fartsy guy. No,
neither do I. And I cringe a little bit when I see he did a speech at one of the award shows where he was really heartfelt about getting the Hollywood back into, you know, profitability and how we got to save this medium that he loves so much. And I'm thinking he sounds like Dave, and he's speaking like you would speak at an international base briefing. And I'm just like, it was so disgusting to hear his tonality and his voice in there. I'm going, oh, that's a turn off. Because you know what? I know it gets ignored because he's a giant money maker and he's a Hollywood star, but man, if you watch any of these shows, this is a guy that's supporting the mass disconnection of families, the destroying of individuals, the ripoff of elders. This is the group he supports, and he does know about these things. He absolutely does know about these things. And part of me thinks, I wonder if Dave tells him all the shit so that he has another scapegoat to take down with him when everything goes down.
People in the chat are pointing out that Tom playing Les Grossman in Tropic Thunder was a pretty good example of him trying to actually disappear into a character. And I actually agree. Yeah. One of the reasons I thought that was so funny is in some ways I felt, and I'm sure he wasn't really doing this. In some ways I felt like he was making fun of himself and David Miscavige by being such an over-the-top, aggressive, horrible person. Now, of course, I'm sure that in his mind, that's not what he was doing. But to me, that's what made it funny, is I'm like, he's actually playing David Miscavige.
He totally was. Absolutely was. Unbelievable. Anyone that knew David Miscavige or worked with him, if they saw that, they're like, oh my God, he's doing David Miscavige. But funny enough, a lot nicer. Because the way he did it, because he was acting, it didn't come across as I want to destroy you. It came across as, hey, I'm just a dick, so I'm going to be funny about it. But absolutely, David Miscavige. And one of the reasons why that was so popular is because Scientologists, as you know, have a very hard time laughing at themselves. And that was, I think, the first time Tom Cruise did something that laughed at himself, that made him a little more vulnerable and a little more real to everyone, because he was no longer just this action star that could crush everything. And it did. I mean, it absolutely endeared him, I think, to a new generation and a lot of fans. But then, all he has to do is talk about or be associated with Scientology, and he loses all that later on. So
yeah. I remember hearing that there was a full-length feature Les Grossman character movie in the works that just never got off the ground. But I was like, wow, that would be leaning into that character pretty heavily, and I think that would work depending on the storyline and everything. But
he would just have to ghost David Miscavige for a month and he would have all his content.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, seriously.
Exactly. I know we don't have a lot of time to chat today, but sometimes when we do videos, I like to just assume anyone watching this video may not have seen any of our earlier videos. So even though if we've talked about this before, in your opinion, let's go back to this concept of
Sure.
people actually believing L. Ron Hubbard was quite literally returning, was going to, I don't know, walk up to the gates of the international base someday and ring the doorbell and say, I'm home. Like, no one understands how that was really supposed to work. But for you, how did the idea or the belief that L. Ron Hubbard was quite literally coming back to take back over control of Scientology, how did that impact you in any way, shape, or form, as far as continuing to be there for longer than you might have, or anything?
It was ungraspable as a concept, because I would always, in my mind at the time, I would go, okay, well, if he's going to come back, he's going to have to come back at an age where he obviously can speak and can understand basic things. So it's not going to be, up until he's like maybe 10 years old, earliest maybe is 15, but maybe he comes back at 21. I kept trying to do that math in my head of where he would come back. And then how would that work? Would he just be a child of some normal parents and then all of a sudden pop up and say, I am L. Ron Hubbard and take me back? But then I also thought, well, how easy would that be for anyone to go say that and pretend to be him if they really did their research? So I couldn't figure it out. I did try to go how that would work. And then, because then you go, oh, well, maybe there's some OT Scientologist that would have a kid and that would be him. And then they would raise him in a certain way. But then he would have to be a prodigy to some degree, because he's obviously remembering everything from his past life. So I just couldn't, like, I'd never seen it. I'd never heard of it. And I couldn't make sense with it. So I would just kind of, push it off to the side going, I don't know if that's possible. Could it really happen? So it didn't keep me there. What kept me there was my group of friends, the people I loved, and just doing my job. And when I eventually left, it was just because I couldn't take the shit anymore. I couldn't take the thing. And I started to see what my future would look like. And I didn't want to wash dishes into my 60s. So at that point I was like, I'm out of here. I can go, even though I was scared and I didn't know what life really was like. That was less of a risk than staying there, especially because I knew Dave didn't like me. He really didn't like me. So once you figured out Dave doesn't like you, I don't know how you don't just go, yeah, I'm out of here. Because there's no way. There's no way you're ever going to be valuable to them again if Dave doesn't like you. So.
Well, somehow Guillaume Leserve got over that concern. He doesn't seem to give a shit that Dave doesn't like him. And Guillaume comes from a family of money. Like, if Guillaume left, he's got tons of people and plenty of money to fall back on. Like, he's got family that would take care of him. He's got money that would allow people to take care of him. He probably wouldn't even need anyone to take care of him, because he seems to still be in good health from any little leaks of information that exist out there. Like, he's not like a Hubbard Jensch who's out in a nursing home.
Right.
By the way,
question ever. I mean, we should get an actual certified psychologist on to sometime try to explain how that, because I believe he's still working for L. Ron Hubbard. I think it was, who was it? It was Claire, or maybe it was Mike Rinder's wife, that spoke about how they could understand how Dave was bad. They could grasp that, but it took him another 10 years to understand that L. Ron Hubbard was bad. And that's harder to accept, because if you don't have a personal interaction with the guy, but you hear him laughing on the lectures, you read his things where he is benevolent sometimes, you want to believe that's a really good guy. And a lot of good people that are in Scientology that are working towards this goal. You believe they're there because of L. Ron Hubbard. So you can become fixated on the fact that he is the person you're really working for, and Dave is just a bump in the road.
Right.
And I would think that would be where Guillaume Leserve is, because Guillaume is you're not going to find a lot of people to say bad things about Guillaume. I liked Guillaume a lot. Also, his daughters are two of the most fantastic people you ever meet. And it's sad. It's sad that they didn't get to grow up with a father. But it's that age-old question. It's my dad. I think my dad Foster is still there because he believes in L. Ron Hubbard. I know he doesn't believe in Dave Miscavige. He may pretend to. He maybe think that's something, but I don't believe he actually. I think he's there for L. Ron Hubbard, and I think you have a lot of people. Once you can let go of L. Ron Hubbard, like Mike Brown, like Rosemary did, then that becomes more real.
Right. Did you have any particular knowledge while you were working at the Int base that Scientologists around the world were not expecting L. Ron Hubbard to return?
No.
Okay.
None whatsoever.
In retrospect, I'm going to comment because I haven't given this much thought myself.
Sure.
If as a normal Scientologist in the world and someone who's never at INT, not only did I not expect him to return, I specifically didn't expect him to return. I specifically expected him to not return.
Interesting.
And I think it's interesting to note that if Scientologists around the world were in fact expecting L. Ron Hubbard to reincarnate, there would have been an absolute waterfall. I'm at a loss for the real word. Deluge of Scientologists trying to get their 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds onto auditor training and attesting to clear as fast as possible. And we all know Scientologists sort of like to brag if their kids are, reaching for Scientology auditing and training, but there's not necessarily this mass effort to, like, as soon as they can read, get them on the student hat, or, have my kid get onto the OT levels as fast as possible. But if that's what Scientologists expected, people would almost be like beating down the doors of the orgs to try to get their 5-year-olds in to, like, attest to clear and shit.
Right.
Because they would want dibs that my kid is the L. Ron Hubbard returning.
And I wonder how many delusional Scientologists do actually, like, when their kid's born, they're like looking at him real close and you're like, there's a red hair in there. That might be him, like actually getting excited about it. I don't doubt that at all. Because as we've seen from the post you and Reese do, the Housewives of Scientology.
Real Housewives of Scientology.
Yeah. That is such a good insight into just how feedy-weedy and ridiculous they can get about things. It's you're like, really, that's an adult that claims to have intelligence. It's pretty shocking to me. Actually, always shocking to me.
OMG, mamas, I need some help. I don't know what to do. Me and my husband are on OT7 and all our kids are in the Sea Org. Well, oh no, can you help us? Oh, if only I had a shoulder to cry on. By the way, have you seen my jet?
Yeah. It's something else. It really is something else. I mean, and we have a lot. Look, I was kind of on a 1-week break from YouTube. I did a video with Janice last week about my dad, and that had a lot of emotion in it. So I needed a little break. So that's why I haven't been really reaching out to anyone. So of course, I'm so happy to get back on with you, Aaron. I love it. And I'm making a list of things you and I can talk about, which are just building by the day, because we got to talk about different experiences as kids. I would love to. It's fun to compare with you because it's a perfect, you have the way you got into Scientology. You were in a class 5 org. I was born into Scientology, but I was born into the Sea Org essentially, and just our different paths going and how we've met out here, I think is in itself fascinating. So I would love to talk to you more about that. I also secretly, I want in on your trivia night.
Oh yeah. Trivia night is so much fun. We gotta, and these would be more fun if we include more people too.
Oh, I am. You say the word trivia, I am in. Like, I love that stuff. Like, absolutely. So you just call me when you have it, and I'll try to figure out how to make time for it. But yeah, no, I would definitely love doing that. And I always, as always, love talking to you about stuff, and it's insightful and it's fun. So.
Well, awesome. I have fun doing it as well. We just got a handful of super chats here. Let's bang them out, and then we'll call this one a wrap. The villain, LOL heck, and Sea Org service orgs looked down on liaison offices, but liaison offices are higher than the Sea Org service orgs. Yeah. Oh, wait. Sea Org service orgs, maybe were looked down upon by the liaison offices, and the aides were at the bottom of the totem pole, but the aides are higher than the liaison offices.
But I wonder if some of the service orgs were like, you guys are useless. You're just coming in here giving us random orders. Let's just service the public. That's potentially.
Oh, so he's so this person's talking about thinking bad about the echelon above you. That wasn't my experience. You get in trouble for that shit.
Interesting. Okay.
So, but that's super interesting.
But mind you, at Golden Air Productions, as Mark Headley's spoken about, once we knew Int was getting trashed, it was like Mark Ingber, Mark Yeager, Guillaume Laserve. So Dave created a situation where it got reversed, where Gold was doing the work and the rest of these executives were useless. And we just needed them to sign off on some of the checks so we could continue our projects without them.
Yes. Well, now that you mentioned that is interesting. Like, so in the service orgs, the Continental liaison offices, what's funny is the staff members from those, from the, the Continental management office.
Yeah.
they're not even allowed to come into the orgs. That's actually considered a huge violation of the rules. All they can do is send little telexes and be like, how come you didn't do that thing you were supposed to do? We would ignore all of the telexes from the CLO because we're like, we're too busy doing our jobs to answer your stupid messages about the things you want us to do that don't actually have anything to do with doing our jobs. But we didn't. It was never acceptable to openly criticize the upper level of management, though. But I guess, you know, in day-to-day life, it was like, yeah, I didn't even know what they did all day.
Right.
Other than send angry telexes inquiring why everyone was ignoring their telexes.
Right. Yeah. And distract you from post. Yeah.
Yeah. Super anxiety chick. Hi from Belgium. Sterling, if you ever want to dive in the Red Sea in Egypt, I'll gladly join. Oh, hubba hubba.
Hubba hubba. I've actually already dove in the Red Sea in Saudi, not in Egypt. But yeah, Red Sea is stunningly beautiful. Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, I'm not going over there anytime soon, so I don't know.
But why is someone from Belgium talking about going into the Red Sea in Egypt? Have you been talking about this on your channel or something?
Every day I talk about diving in the Red Sea in Egypt. No, I have no clue. Thank you so much for the invite. Not a big diver. I've done it, but not a big diver just because I have I have small ear holes.
I think she must have a fantasy about diving into the Red Sea with you in Egypt, and she's trying to slide into the DMs right now is what's happening here, I believe, Sterling. Maybe
right, well,
adjust that.
Get in line. Get in line, Belgium anxiety check.
Take a number take a number at the Sterling Deli. Okay. Kat Mariette's Church of Scientology has a self-limiting concept, and David Miscavige made it worse. All right.
Someone wrote 2D flowing.
Oh,
that person obviously listens to these videos.
Beloved's bride. I was out by 1980, and when I told my hubby about the Church of Scientology in 1989 about Xenu and all that, he was surprised. Now I wonder how I knew that stuff. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. So she doesn't remember how she found out about the Xenu stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, I definitely never read about Xenu until after I was out.
No, and that's a fun video to talk about that too. Your first reaction to that. We'll do that sometime.
Yeah. Plaques and Tangles. Do you know anyone who named their kid Elron? No, but it's funny that Scientologists, I feel like you'd get in trouble if you did that as a Scientologist.
Probably would, but I think people name their kids Elrond after the chief elf in Lord of the Rings, which is spelled Elrond, which could clearly be mistaken for Elrond. But hey, you know.
Kyle Broflovsky was already reincarnated as Elron. Yes, that is Kyle from the South Park cartoons.
Oh. That's what it was.
Yeah.
I love that. Actually, I see that David Miscavige. I'm like, oh shit, he's on here.
Cool, man. Well,
All
if
right.
you're available on Sunday or anything, let me know. If you're available next Wednesday, let me know, and let's figure out what our next little chat's going to be about.
We are, and I am, and we'll definitely do something on Sunday.
Thanks for hanging out with us this afternoon, guys.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks to everyone who watches until the very end, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.